Greetings, everyone. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Got the StreamYard link down there for anybody that wants to join, so feel free to come up on panel. If you're on Facebook, you'll have to come over to one of the YouTube channels to hop on the chat and get on the panel if you want to from there. And in the meantime, make sure you hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Help the algorithm. And of course, if you're on El Perro, get over to Hecklebus and do that. And if you're on Hecklebus, get over to El Perro, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. I do want to thank everybody for joining, showing your support. There's a couple PayPal links down in the details section if anybody wants to help share some love. And if you've been following here lately, you see I've had some issues with the Postal Service that we're trying to take care of. And of course, it's kind of right in line with all the information I've been researching over the last 7 years in regards to estate recovery. And so, excuse me, we're going to go over some details of the information that I'm going to be providing in regards to what they call admissions and supplements to the record. This, of course, is one of the rules of federal rules of civil procedure in regards to discovery. And of course, the last 7 years has been nothing but a research of discovering material facts as it relates to not just my case, but many cases. A lot of different elements along the way that involve a lot of different aspects of life. And it all starts with the enumeration at birth, spell of illness, a service agreement for inpatient hospital services. That is the enumeration at birth, which is actually a continuation of what they call a general journal. Now, the general journal is a prenatal record, according to mom and her visits to the hospital, establishing a knowledge of something in mom's womb, relating directly to Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And at that time, it's the doctors trying to know that baby as well. But there, again, before the doctors knew anything, there was something prior. There is something that came before, and that was the original conception. So we're going to go over that term as it is. You know me and my etymology. And so, excuse me, real quick here, we've got concept as a noun is a general notion, the immediate object of a thought. 1550s from medieval Latin conceptum, draft, abstract. In classical Latin, a thing conceived. From concept, past participle stem of concepere, to take in and hold, become pregnant. Here, perhaps an intensive prefix, con, plus combining form of capere, to take. Remember, F-A-C-E-R-E, facere, F-A-C-E-R-E, facere, as it relates to F-I-C, in office of vice, meant to make. Capere means to take. So mom's womb, when mom gets pregnant, is literally where you are made. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. From Pirute, Proto-Indo-European, cap, to grasp. In some 16th century cases, a refashioning of conceit, perhaps to avoid negative connotations that had begun to cling to that word. So mom was in conceit of a baby was changed to mom conceives a baby in concept. Conceit as a noun, late 14th century, a thought, a notion, that which is mentally conceived. Conceived based on analogy of deceit, deceive, and receipt, receive. Receipt, receive. This is the part where they received a journal or data elements, a set of information, and gave her receipts through her visits to the doctor in prenatal conception. The sense evolved from something formed in the mind to fanciful or witty notion, ingenious thought, to vanity, exaggerated estimate of one's own mental abilities through shortening of self-conceit. A doublet of concept. It sometimes was spelled conceit. So it was merely the addition of an I through the adoption of a different language. Capere being French, from a Proto-Indo-European root, cap, to grasp. So the French took it from a Indo-European root, and English took it from that, borrowing, adopting. The same thing that happens in that record when a baby is conceived and the doctor starts taking notes. And it's an adoption process of the data elements that are eventually used as an import set of information. What I'm going to go over next is a special notice of previous appearance errors entered into the record by registration and filed for historical value as an individual. And like I said, if you've been paying attention to me here lately, well, over the last 7 years, you know it's all dependent on various different terms. One of them being a resident, which is the individual that is established upon registration and filing into the Bureau of Vital Statistics. Now, the first set of information, like I said, is the prenatal record. Mom goes to the hospital when she's bearing the labor pains, bearing her child in labor pains. And that is a registration that is filed for inpatient hospital services on the beginning on the first day, and that itself is defined as a spell of illness. That event where she changed from outpatient hospital services, from visiting the doctor outside of the hospital and being an outpatient, and now she's in the hospital and she's requiring inpatient hospital services. In that inpatient hospital services, beginning the first day, known as a spell of illness, mom has a baby, and now there's another spell of illness where an individual is now established as fact and is material. So let's take a look at that, because at the beginning, that establishment has to do with a historical value as it relates to being presented to the National Archives once you pass away, in regards to the statistical elements within those sets of data. So here we are. That's a special note of previous appearance errors entered into the record for registration and filed for historical value as an individual. He that hath received his testimony hath set to his seal that God is true. This is what was not mentioned. This is what was forgotten. This is what was not heralded. So we begin a procedure of fictional associations. What does separate and equal station mean? July 3rd of 2008, there's an article you read here, and our brother Derek Gonzalez just recently did a video on his YouTube channel. So if you just punch in Derek Gonzalez on YouTube, it should pop up. And he did a thing on separate and equal station as well, just recently. And a separate and equal station is literally self-government. That is a people exercising all the necessary functions of power without interference of a higher authority that they can't control themselves. Is a long-standing tradition in the United States. A people exercising all the necessary functions of powers without interference of a higher authority that they can't control themselves. A people, singular, they, plural, is a long-standing tradition in the United States. My declaration here, as it relates to custom declarations and dispatch notes, as we saw in a video earlier in this series. Declaration, a prose of theory in concept. Concept is that the rules of procedure and notes of material facts from many sources, and particularly the law of nations, presents variances for categorical pretreatment standards that have been, are, and continue to be fundamentally different in nature / supervisory differentials. Variances are between the two primary jurisdictions that are original and exclusive of the other, and being those of public / general and private / priori. We serve only one master. Okay, this is a declaration. We serve only one master. I don't care if anybody else wants to agree with that or not. If they don't want to agree with it, that's fine. They may be insane. Priority material fact admission. Commissions, as in when you're on a mission in life. COM, with mission. When you have a duty in life, when you have a destination in life, when you have places to go and things to do. Meaning you're not just stationary, as in the paperwork. Okay, you have a separate but equal station in life, to produce stationary that has your heraldic symbol on it, setting forth that the word of God is true. Original / exclusive jurisdiction, as seen at 39 CFR 3000.110. The commission and its offices. The commission and its offices. And as you see, it's Title 39 in CFR. Post offices. The Postal Regulatory Commission is an independent establishment of the executive branch of the federal government, created by the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act 39 USC 501. The commission and its offices. It is a material fact that the correlating grant of Congress is seen at Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 1, 3, 7, 17, and 14. And as I said, commission literally means with mission. Their mission within that, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, Congress shall lay and collect taxes, duties, and imposts and excises. All of those forms, like I said, for the Uniform Commercial Code and the individual, is known as Battle of the Forms. Not part of my battle. Okay. Subsequent admissions. This is the priority material fact admission and not a priori. This is just a priority material fact admission. What comes before that is, in beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Subsequent admissions. The commissioners. The Postal Regulatory Commission is an independent establishment of the executive branch of the federal government, created by the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act 39 USC 501. This correlates the CFR with the code for that commission. That's the commission that's entering everything into their records pursuant to registration and filing by other agencies and agents. And if you're a resident, you're considered an agent or official of the federal, state, or municipal governments. It's just a presumption. And you're the one entering all that information. And it's done through a postal system. Postal system. Agency means an executive agency or legislative branch agency included in 5 USC 5102A1. And you can look that up and see what it says. If it's there, they can't deny it. That's why it's called an admission. You set up the admissions in a way to help them figure out that what's happening is impossible. And they can't enforce something that's impossible. That's reason and logic. And to do so would mean that there is definitely something seriously wrong with someone trying to say that they can do the impossible. An agency means an executive agency. The government publishing office, the Library of Congress. Oops, I guess I need to take that one out. The government of the District of Columbia. See, folks, the United States is the record. It's a postal record. And it's located within the Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia. And the government of the District of the government is the one that's holding those documents. They are a foreign entity. They are a foreign corporation. And they have a contract with the post office to provide a governmental postal service through post offices known as inland marine installations. And as I said, if it's a diplomatic post, that would be one thing. If it's a military post, that's another thing. See, the military post would be that general accounting, the general post, a military post. A diplomatic post is different. And if they're going to say it's not a military post, then it must be a diplomatic post. There are only the two different posts. Within the military post, you have several different military posts. You have an Army post, a Air Force post, a Marine post. Yeah, you get it? Okay. Each one of them has their own postal accounting. Executive agency, agency means, we already read that one. Agency means an executive agency or a legislative branch agency. And then agency means an executive agency. And then we listed a few of them. And then, of course, there's the ... indicating there's more. There's a continuation. Executive agency means an executive department. So now we have agencies and departments included, a government corporation, and an independent establishment. Okay. The independent establishment is the Postal Regulatory Commission. Government corporation is the United States. And then federal government is the executive agencies and executive departments. Federal government means all entities of the government of the United States. United States is the government corporation. The government of that corporation are all the executive agencies and departments of Washington, D.C. Another corporation. It's an independent private corporation that's running a government corporation because there's no current government. All of the people are running amok and acting insane. Authorized agency official means the head of an agency or an official who is authorized to act for the head of the agency in the matter concerned. It's an official who is authorized and not an individual who is authorized. Competencies means the knowledge, skills, abilities, behaviors, and other characteristics an individual needs to perform the duties of a position. Now, if the people they have acting as officials who are authorized to act for the head of the agency in the matter concerned aren't acting competently and don't have the knowledge, skills, abilities, behaviors, and other characteristics to communicate appropriately with people around the world, then they need to be dispositioned. They're the ones that need the disposition hearing. Employee has the meaning given the term in 5 U.S.C. 2105, except telling us that there's an exception, that the term also includes an employee described in 5 U.S.C. 2105C. So you can look those up and see. For the purpose of determining whether an individual was an employee of the federal government and therefore qualified to be an official or an agent during the 90-day period referred to in the definition of newly appointed. Employee also includes an employee described in 5 U.S.C. 2105E. So you read that too. For the purpose of 575.109D, an employee means an individual not yet employed who has received a written offer to be newly appointed or reappointed and has signed the written service agreement required by 575.110 before payment of the recruitment incentive. Gentlemen, were you offered a written offer to be newly appointed or reappointed by a written service agreement? Private, first class. That's an important position. It's a station in life. And the very term private first class in a military general setting is just insane. Employee is engaged or is one engaged in the performance of federal function under authority of law or an executive act. Remember what was the function? A people that exercise all the necessary functions of power without interference of a higher authority, that they can't control themselves. Does that sound like the federal government? Employee means an individual employed in or under an agency. Position means the work consisting of the duties and responsibilities assignable to an employee. Class or class of positions includes all positions which are sufficiently similar. Again, force majeure or to combat. There's a major force in effect that says, I'm not part of your war. I'm not invested in commerce. I'm not invested in the person. I'm not invested in the man. The body that you see and you call a man and is defined as a noun as a man is in fact the full armor of God in all of my nakedness even. Federal government means all entities of the government of the United States, including the United States Postal Service as the registered agent and the Postal Regulatory Commission. Okay. Government corporation means a corporation owned or controlled by the government of the United States. And government-controlled corporation does not include a corporation owned by the government of the United States. Excuse me. I'd like to take a minute to thank everybody. Appreciate all of your support. Russell Combs, JLV, Angry Rooster, Dominic Tersigny, Eric Lieberman. Everybody welcome. Angry Rooster. Richard Innerbuzz. And Richard Innerbuzz wants to know, do you know, let's see here. Do you know of any documents on this stuff? The documents are the material facts I'm going over right now, brother. It's all the statute, codes, rules, and regulations. And they are actually, in fact, material evidence of notes. It is a promise if it is a note. It is a draft if it is an order. Remember, the definition of concept we saw earlier was a draft or an order. Or excuse me, a draft or an abstract. And what they did was they abstracted the information from the general journal that was kept by the doctor in outpatient hospital visits, and they drew it all up in one document for the birth registration to create a general ledger from that general journal. That's all it is. And it's all false. It was a false entry. It was an errored entry into the record. So, and real quick, be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And anybody that wants to share some love, there's a couple PayPal links down in the details section. Please be sure to do that and support each other. A prenatal general journal, OPM means the Office of Personnel Management. The mentality of the age of man. When you become the age of a man, a full-grown man, you're supposed to have a different mentality than that of a child. A prenatal general journal was created prior to the enumeration at birth and maintained as a privy record. It was maintained under confidentiality, doctor-patient privilege. At enumeration at birth, a general ledger was attached and filed in the public record. This was done for collection and publication for the Bureau of Vital Statistics because a resident citizen was born and a birth registration was filed at the county. And it was the abstract information from that birth registration at the hospital, the initial statement of live birth, wherein they put the abstract information on it and claimed that mom was an informant, giving information upon an offer. This is offer and acceptance, information of contract. Service agreement means a written agreement between an agency and an employee, under which the employee agrees to a specified period of employment of not less than 6 months or more than 4 years with the agency in return for payment of a recruitment incentive. I believe that's the SS5. Because when you file that SS5, what happens is they generate a record that says you're a Medicare qualified government employee. MQGI. I've got a confirmation when I was out on the Appalachian Trail doing my thing. I stopped in town one day, and just for happenstance, I decided I was going to apply for disability and ask some questions. And one of the questions I asked during that application process, they gave me a document that gave me all the abstract information that they could give me without exposing the entire file. On there was a abbreviation MQGI, and that was the Medicare Qualified Government, MGQE, MQGE, Medicare Qualified Government Employee. Now, folks, I didn't apply for disability because I wanted disability or because I even thought I could get it. I only applied to get the process so I could get certain information. So no, I didn't apply for disability because I'm disabled or because I think I'm disabled. Certainly not. They would try to claim that I'm disabled in some mental capacity, but that would only be the mental capacity of being insane if I continue entering information into their records knowing that it doesn't belong there.
Keith, can I ask you a question here? This is Chris. How are you doing today?
Sure. Greetings, Chris. Welcome, everybody, and welcome to the panel, Chris. Thank you again for joining.
Oh, very nice. I got my lamp hat on today.
Oops. There we go.
Yeah.
That works.
So I came across an SS5FS, and then I was reading the instructions on that. It appears to have a different type of routing on that SS5FS, which may mean foreign state.
Probably.
I'm wondering if perhaps if you don't know anything about it, if you might give us some insight into what the function of that is, because my buddy Danny decided, he was just going to go ahead and send it in the Social Security Administration because it seemed to us like that's what's filed for the national who's not acting in the capacity of employee. And Danny's retiring now, so he thought to amend the record by sending Social Security in Massachusetts an SS5FS. We have yet to get any response back, but we found that it was interesting that the Social Security Administration agents in our local area here had never seen one before, and they had no idea what to do with it.
Yeah. Amazing how the people that are supposed to be offering these forms don't offer the forms and don't know about the forms. And then when you bring it up, you're the one that's got to explain it to them. Pretty interesting, huh?
Right.
It goes to the competencies that I was just talking about, and we're going to go over that as well. That's one.
I ended up calling the number and confirming with them that indeed that SS5FS has a different routing, and it has to be mailed to their post office box and cannot be processed through their processing centers.
And that's the one in Maryland. That's the P.O. box out in Maryland.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, I'll take a look at that form, and we'll review that again some other time, probably tomorrow.
Well, it may be something to amend the record for people that are in retirement or basically retiring from their volunteerism. It might be a nice way to express that they want to amend the record, and I do believe that would be for a beneficiary rather than for like the SS5 being an application for employment. I don't think the FS, as far as what I could determine in the instructions, it doesn't seem like that's the case. It may be for the beneficiary. So that may be a little key there.
Well, that Moonbug says the SS5 SF, foreign migrants get funds from the SS Trust as well. And that's what we discussed the other night, was that the birth registration, the enumeration there, that's an immigration document. It's an export-import document. It gets exported from the local municipal hospital to the county registrar. Now that's where it's registered and filed. And then that is the creation through the collection of the data elements of the Bureau of Vital Statistics saying that a citizen resident was birthed. So that's the routing for that. So the SS5, if you're saying that they confirmed it's a different routing, it would be because it's actually recognized that you're foreign state.
Right. So the other thing that we elected to do is take a DS11 and put for amendment purposes only. This is on my buddy Danny's account because he's a business owner and he does a lot in the commerce world. But he used a DS11 and for record correction purposes only, I think is what he put on the top. And then he put it in an affidavit expressing the nationality of his person as well.
Yep.
Right.
And that's what we're looking at here tonight, because there's other elements in there about the.
So I think those two records, the SS5FS and the amended DS11, should let the State Department know they have to change their record in their beast.
Right, and that's a matter of a Homeland Security redress program, and what we're going to do there through this process here, I'm going to request a Homeland Security redress control number, and that way I can stick with my agreement that I'm not going to use the Social Security number anymore, and that the use of a separate number would be a separate and equal station in life to be able to govern myself and the way things are routing. So,
well, should we not be using an either 92 or 98 as a living executor for that 9-digit number that they need to open an account? You don't need to do that?
No, the trust is already valid. And as we go through these admissions, that's all we're doing is we're admitting that the trust is valid, but they've placed us in the wrong position. They created a record, and the individual is identified by the name and number, or excuse me, the individual's name and number identify the record. And they're using that record to identify us. And we're doing the same thing. That's what I did all my life.
A name is not made to recognize a man or a woman. We're given appellation, callings, or whatever, right?
Yeah, appellations.
But it recognizes the record of your citizenship that we should be the captain of then.
Correct. It should establish the fact that we have an equal station in life, separate but equal station in life. But what it does is it bifurcates through the record our origin and puts it down here and creates an overlying record with underlying elements that are never exposed. So when we make the admissions, what we do is we admit the record and then bring up the underlying elements and do the switch. And that's all we're doing with the data elements. We're correcting the record, and it's going to switch everything.
Well, I see that the correction of the record is like the perfection of that gift so that we can collect our royalties and hereditaments through the chancellery. And unless we perfect that gift, then chancellery really can't help us because we haven't done the work to help ourselves in getting correct cognition of how the contract's supposed to operate.
Yep. You've got a good concept on it, I believe. I believe that's a very good concept. That's very close to what I'm looking at. So let's go ahead.
I was I don't know if you know about Franco Collins, but he spent about 100 hours sorting me out so that I could play Chancellor sometimes. But that's what I've done to understand. You're very helpful. You're very helpful and bringing out the Johnson tittles of the law here. I very much appreciate your rhetoric.
Yes, and all glory goes to him because that's where I get those Johnson tittles. I appreciate it. All glory goes to him. So let's go back
to what you're talking about.
Yep. As we see here, the service agreement means a written agreement between an agency and an employee. And that's that Medicare qualified government employee established on the SS5. Commission offices. The Commission's offices are located at 901 New York Avenue Northwest, Suite 200, Washington, D.C. That's where those offices exist, and that's the ones that are doing all of the granting of the Postal Service and all that stuff for the government corporation. There are certain international postal arrangements made with the Secretary of State to promote and encourage communications between peoples by efficient operation of international postal services and other international delivery services. So mom delivered a baby through inpatient hospital services, a delivery service known as a spell of illness. For cultural, social, and economic purposes, and to participate in multilateral and bilateral agreements with other countries to accomplish these objectives. That's where the municipal office or municipal record at the hospital is created. And then again, it's sent to the registrar, the county registrar. That's an import. It exported it from the municipal jurisdiction to a county jurisdiction, which is foreign under 19 U.S. Code 81.0, where a resident is and no person shall be allowed to reside within the zone except federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. And that's federal, state, and municipal, not county. So outside of that, when the municipality exported that documentation from the hospital and imported it into the county registrar, that was the fundamental general deposit and creation of the general ledger based on the general journal that was transported in the exportation from the hospital to the county registrar as an import document, an immigration document. For services for cultural, social, and economic purposes, and to participate in multilateral and bilateral agreements with other countries to accomplish these objectives. See, we're supposed to be part of that by intent according to the code, but there's an impossibility. That 19 USC 81.0 is an impossibility. And we're going to talk about that here. No person shall be allowed to reside within the zone except federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. The Secretary is authorized to collect information from all persons exporting from or importing into the United States and the non-contiguous areas over which the United States exercises sovereignty. See, they can't claim sovereignty, but they can claim to exercise sovereignty, jurisdiction, or control. See, they can't be the sovereign, and they can't claim sovereign, and they can't have jurisdiction. They can claim jurisdiction or control through those legal titles. That's it. It's 1/10 of a law, and it's only a belief. And from all persons engaged in trade between the United States and such contiguous areas, and between those areas, or from the owners or operators of carriers engaged in such foreign commerce or trade, and shall compile and publish such information pertaining to exports, imports, trade, and transportation relating thereto. Nothing else. So your private stuff is not supposed to be for their shit. This is the deception. Wherein that receptionist at the hospital is not the one that's conceiving. It's the mom that's being conceived. The mom that's conceiving, and she's conceiving a baby. And when the baby is born, that baby is born conceived in conceit, a spell of illness, as he deems necessary or appropriate to enable him to foster. Foster means adopt. Adopt means foster. I was a foster child, and the intent was to be adopted. Somebody exported me to be imported. Promote, develop, and further the commerce, domestic and foreign, of the United States and for other lawful purposes. Right here. One of the problems that the local post office has is they believe that Washington, D.C. is domestic, whereas Washington, D.C. is actually domestic and foreign, and they work with the international forum. Okay? They claim to be domestic and foreign. It's a foreign corporation on domestic soil that operates a government corporation known as the domestic corporation, the domestic government. Still a corporate entity on both sides, domestic and foreign. One is a physical location claiming to be domestic when it's actually foreign, and then holding something they claim to be domestic, and it too is actually foreign. Shippers' export declarations or any successor document. So the general journal is information of a successor that is documented by the doctor. It's plain writing. That baby in mom's womb is a legacy heir, a successor to the head of the house, wherever located, even if it's at the local municipal hospital, shall be exempt from public disclosure. It's got privity. Like I said, it's privy. It's private information. Doctor-client confidentiality. Unless the secretary determines that such exemption would be contrary to the national interest. 19 CFR 149.3 data elements and 13 U.S. Code 301. The data elements are meant for collection and publication. Where? Library of Congress, as a matter of historical value, in the data elements that they claim. And in those data elements are other data elements that have value that should be of a greater value. But nobody claims them. The Bureau of Vital Statistics holds records registered and filed of all vital events occurring in the state, such as birth, death, and marriage. See, nobody gets married in the United States. You cannot get married in the United States. There is no marriage registration in the United States. There is no death registration in the United States. There is no birth registration in the United States. They do have a national archive for statistical data collection for its historical value of keeping track of statistics. And the Bureau has an interstate exchange agreement with all of the other states. The original service agreement. And you are a third party to it, outside of it, as a benefactor third-party accommodating for the accord and satisfaction by use of instrument. And this is what's not understood. Nobody understands that they're third party. They think they're subject to this shit. You're not. If you learn what's actually going on, you learn that you're not subject to it, and those forms are offers to the public for accord and satisfaction by use of the instrument for accommodation by a third-party benefactor, so that the beneficiary receives the benefits appropriately. Internal Revenue Service, IRS number, employer identification number, EIN, Social Security number, SSN, or CBP assigned number of the entity liable for payment of all duties and responsible for meeting all statutory and regulatory requirements incurred as a result of the importation. If the importation was not meant to be, and it's actually an impossibility, then this here is dispositioned. The liability was dispositioned when that general ledger was created, and nobody stood up and repositioned it according to that equal station in life. It was never announced. No one stood up and heralded that legacy heir, the successor, and that it maintained its private journal and is not going to be disclosed. None ya business. Country of origin of man, you fact you are. Production or growth of the article based on upon the import laws, rules, and regulations of the United States, the data elements. 26, agency means the Department of State, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, a military department, the Coast Guard, the Atomic Energy Commission, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and such other agency of the government of the United States as the president designates in the best interest of national security. The president shall report any designation to the committees on the armed services of the Congress. Armed services of the Congress. Again, if Congress is military and you think this government is not militarized and is not putting forth military laws, then you have been deceived. They are telling you all over the place, and just because the post office people don't believe that's an inland marine installation doesn't mean it isn't. They say it isn't, but they have not rebutted it appropriately with the countervailing facts materially evident on and for the record. They haven't done that, and they can't do that because they are, in fact, materially evidenced on and for the record as inland marine installations around the world. Why? Because the armed services of Congress are actually the Congress of the Universal Postal Union, a United Nations agreement under the law of nations to protect all merchants by the naval forces, operating the law of the sea and then importing it inland by inland marine installations. Expenses are incidental to transfer of that title, discovered at 49 CFR 24.106, 39 CFR 777.33, and 42 U.S. Code 4653. Excuse me while I correct this, because I want them in order. Just like my personalities, I got to have them in order. The chain of title has to be in order. So 49 CFR is telling you that expenses incidental to transfer of title to the agency. The agency, of course, is Social Security Administration. Social Security Administration has a codification says expenses incidental to transfer title to the United States. The United States Code has a note for a transfer of title, expenses incidental to transfer title to the United States Postal Service, who owes the obligation of and duty of holding those titles so that the equity can be protected for possession and use. And that's why they hold the Postal Realty Investment Trust. Under the Privacy Act, an individual has the right to access any information in our records about him or her, including a copy of Form SS5. Again, brother, they didn't mention the SS5FS, so we might have to ask about that, right? Application for a Social Security card, okay? And the Numinant record. A Numinant record is a computer extract where they extracted information here and abstracted onto this document. It was a grafting. It was a drafting. They drafted it onto another by grafting it from, and therefore they created a graph, a T-ledger of Form SS5 and subsequent application for replacement Social Security number cards. And then they've got the security palms that you can go read. And when you read them, you will see you will see date of birth, DOB, and then it will say prior DOB. And I'll pull that up so we can see that. At another site, you'll see that there's a legal name that is created, and it is the legal name is the name used to sign legal documents, deeds, or contracts. On that very POMS, it shows that someone is instructed to translate given names and family names shown on documents submitted as SSN evidence to the first and last name on the SSN application, respectively. This is the creation of the legal name. The legal name is the first and last name. The appellation is the given name and a family name. The individual's name and number identify the record.
I don't think the SS5FS would actually apply to what they're talking about here, but I would believe it's probably inclusive when they're writing.
Right. What it is a misnomer by the enumeration at birth. It's still an exported document from the municipality showing that it was a foreign state. So everybody's been instructed to fill out the SS5, when in fact, if that's the case, it's for a foreign state, it would in fact be applicable to go ahead and fill that out, just like a migrant coming from a foreign state and filling it out, and it's recognizing them as a benefactor, and they're not required to do much of anything.
The benefactor would also be under civilian status.
No,
because they're not employee status of
it's
federal.
still military. That would still be military. So let me see here.
Yeah, so the person is still protected by the military, but under a different status because he's not engaged.
Okay, so we have
duty.
the POMS, Program Operations Manual System. Remember, it's operations and administration. So the Social Security Administration has a Program Operations Manual System, and the Selective Service is responsible for all operations and administrations of the board or boards within its jurisdiction. Okay, so it leads right back to the Social Security again. Defining the legal name for a Social Security number. So what is the legal name? For SSA enumeration purposes, a legal name consists of a first name and a last name or surname. The legal name is used to sign legal documents and deeds or contracts. And the given name and family name translate, this is the instruction, given name and family name. Translate given names and family names shown on documents submitted as SSN evidence to the first name or first and last name on the Social Security number application, respectively, as follows. Given names equals first full name and middle name, either of which may have more than one part, and family name equals full last name, surname, or family name, which may have more than one part, may also be shown as part of the family name. So when they translate given names and family names, that's two. They call it first and last name, but it creates one name known as the legal name. The two become one. It is just like a marriage. Since a person's middle name, evidence of the legal name, U.S. born individual. I want to see the birth registration showing that I was born in the United States. If there is no such document, then this is false. Is that clear? If there is no U.S. birth registration, then no one can be born individually in the United States. In general,
aren't they saying like that because the hospital itself is a vessel on dry dock managed by the United States Incorporated?
Right. It's a record, but there's no
So
record.
if you're at the hospital, if you're in a hospital building, then you're presumably on a vessel, which is presumably in the United States. I think that's how they're thinking about it.
Well, no, yeah, it's presumably in the United States, but again, the United States is located in Washington, D.C., so that creates a inconsistency in the record. If they say, like I said, if you ask a postal worker if you're in the United States and they say yes, it automatically proves that they're incompetent because it clearly says materially, factually, that the United States is located in Washington, D.C. And if you're not locating yourself in Washington, D.C., and you're at a different location, and you're trying to convince me that you are in the United States, I'm going to look at you like an idiot, just like I ought to.
Well, if you're indeed on a registered vessel that's registered to the United States, I think that's how they're trying to construe
it still
that.
doesn't matter. That's the vessel.
Yeah,
It still doesn't matter. Again, that just proves their own insanity.
Certainly.
So let's continue on. A U.S. born person's legal name is the name shown on his or her U.S. birth certificate. Now, I want to see the U.S. birth certificate. They're saying there's a U.S. birth certificate. If there's no birth registry in the United States, there is no U.S. birth certificate. Again, every birth certificate you get will say the state of the import document holder. So the Bureau of Vital Statistics holds the data elements, Secretary of State holds the abstract, and that is not the United States. It includes hyphens and apostrophes. Unless the person's name has changed based on certain events, such as a marriage or a valid court order for a name change. Changed based on certain events. Unless the person's name has changed based on certain events. The event was the enumeration purposes, which was commercial. And they will placate that as for historical value because you're a United States national who was conferred nationality upon that birth in the United States. Again, which it never happened. So the United States nationality doesn't exist and couldn't possibly be conferred. It's that simple, folks. So let's go look back at the document. And someone is instructed to translate that as we saw. The individual's name and number identify the record, as we've seen before under 20 CFR 422.103, Social Security numbers. And it says, and then an admission, and this is one of reason and logic. If a record is found impossible to bring into correction for any reason, it is up for automatic and mandatory declassification. And you can search this and find information on that as well. It's military, automatic, and mandatory declassification through prescribed standard forms. And it relates to the training. So let's get back here. Drop my window. National Archives. It is historical value meant to be entered into the National Archives upon the death of that individual person through the Social Security Administration, and obituaries, publicly stated obituaries. Mandatory Declassification Review, Information Security Oversight Office. Mandatory declassification review is a means by which any individual or entity can request any federal agency to review classified information for declassification, regardless of its age or origin, subject to certain limitations. Pure and simple. When we look up the prescribed standard forms, as mentioned there, pull it up here. Okay. We see here is that one that I posted, the 32 CFR 20001.80 prescribed standard forms. Security container information provides the names, addresses, and telephone numbers of employees who are to be contacted if the security container to which the form pertains is found open and unattended. This is mom when she's at the hospital. She's considered an employee herself under a spell of illness for the inpatient hospital services because she too is under the Social Security SS5. Medicare qualified government employee. The form also includes the means to maintain a current record of the security container's combination and provides the envelope. What is a combination? Combination is a series of routes or series of numbers that open something. It's a routing. And provides the envelope to be used to forward this information to the appropriate agency, activity, or official. The next one is Security Container Check Sheet, SF702. SF703, Top Secret Cover Sheet. SF704, Secret Cover Sheet. Remember I said you're a secret agent, man? SF705, Confidential Cover Sheet. That doctor and patient have confidentiality. SF706, Top Secret Label. This is the logo, the brand. 707, Secret Label. 708, Confidential Label. 709, Classified, Private First Class. 710, Unclassified Label, which is different than declassification. Data Descriptor Label. is used to identify additional safeguarding controls that pertain to classified information that is stored or contained on electronic or other media. If any agency determines, as part of its risk management strategy, that a data descriptor label is required, the SF711 will be used. If any agency determines. So this is a form, and you'll see this a lot in these sections here. So this is open to all those agencies, which are also departments, as we know from earlier. So you're literally entering data elements into a financial or an accounting record, a postal record that is available for medical records, educational records, employment records, insurance records, all of them. They all have access to it. Financial disclosure report. And SF715, Government Declassification Review tab. The SF715 is used to record the status of classified national security information reviewed for declassification. The SF715 shall be used in all situations that call for the use of a tab as part of the processing of records determined to be of important or of permanent historical value. The national stock number for SF715 is 7540-01-537-469. Does that look like a social security number attached with a addendum number, just like a zip code with an addendum number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 digits. How lucky do you feel now? You feel lucky, punk? Do you? I want to take a moment to thank everybody for their support, coming out and showing your attendance here and viewing the videos. We're going to continue on here. I just wanted to remind everybody to please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And welcome everybody: Eric Lieberman, Freedom Grower, Aaron, Michael Ravoda, Look Within, Moonbug, Jack of Jacks, Joyce, my companion, enjoying the time with us, Richard Interbun, Dominic Tersigny, Angry Rooster, Jen, Russell, greetings. Make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Get this information out there. And let's continue on with the document. And this is where we get into the fun part, because like I said, they all want to be dismissive and this and that and try to create a controversy where none exists. I'm trying to impress upon them that these are laws that have material that are stated materially in their records. And so if they're not going to agree with them, then that proves their own incompetence or insanity. One or the other, admit it or deny it. Otherwise, you're doing it intentionally, and that would certainly be a tort action in law. I do not want to believe that. So it says the Judicial Officer Department is a neutral, independent forum within the United States Postal Service, registered agent comprised of the judicial officer, the Office of Administrative Law Judges, and the Postal Service Board of Contract Appeals. The General Journal and the General Ledger is a particular jurisdiction of its participants and is original and exclusive within its own association. And by extracting that information from mom, purporting that it's a matter of confidentiality, is in fact false, because as a matter of confidentiality, it is actually drawing her by an abstract as known as an informant into an investigation, also known as an investment. It is a commercial intent, and it is not for non-disclosure or privy reasons any longer. It is a public record. The error in entry is an accident and includes continuous and repeated exposure to the same conditions, resulting in public liability in which the insured neither expected nor intended. 49 CFR 387.5. And you can see by the receipts that they give you, most often, it will say U.S. debit. Mandatory declassification review. And this is one of the things that they hide when you use the Medicare qualified government employee Medicaid and Medicare services, because they pay for everything except for what they tell you you got to pay by check or money order. So they're the ones getting those receipts. The mandatory declassification review program permits individuals or agencies to require an agency to review specific classified national security information for purposes of seeking its declassification. This program allows historians, researchers, and other members of the public to identify documents and or information pertinent to their research. So historians, researchers, and other members of the public would include journalists, private journalists at that. You get where I'm going there? Okay. Had we known that freedom of transit is guaranteed throughout the entire territory of the Union, we most certainly would not have done so. We certainly would not have entered the record as so. Record as a young adult nor a infant child. See, it's an impossibility for a reasonable man to admit that he can serve two masters. It's impossible. So the only reason that anybody would serve a master that's fictional and confusing and exists in insanity of being singular and plural at the same time is an impossibility. Being male and female at the same time is an impossibility. You can have singular and plural traits. You can have male and female traits, but to be both at the same time is impossible. To be both a citizen of the state, a resident of the state, and a United States citizen is impossible. And we know that, again, because there is no such thing as a United States citizen as it's posed. So the rebuttal to this is King James Version, Psalms 128, wherein the Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. That covers all identifications to pass all ports, which is your rite of passage and your rite of portage. Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. This is when you started your own private journal and conceived in thought that you might be pregnant. And instead of keeping it private, you blabbed it off to the world as a babbling idiot. Genesis 2:7, wherein that life formed in the belly, and before it was cast from the womb, he sanctified it, and he ordained it a prophet unto the nations by breathing the breath of life into his nostrils, and that man became a living soul. Leviticus 25:23 through 25 says that land shall not be sold forever. You know, the dust that God formed man of the dust of the ground. See, the land is not supposed to be sold forever. Neither are you, because you are of the land. So they're not selling you. What they're doing is they're confusing and commingling a record with you. And you're doing the same thing, quid quo pro, vice versa. The land shall not be sold forever, for it is mine, and ye are strangers and sojourners with me. Like the land, ye too are mine. Fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name. thou art mine, and in all the lands of your possession ye shall grant a redemption to the land. And if your brother be waxen and poor, and hath sold off his belongings, and his next of kin or any of his kin come to redeem him, he shall buy back what his brother has sold. Titus 3:8. This is a faithful saying. I will that thou affirm constantly that he who have believed in God, shew the good works that are profitable unto man. Deuteronomy 15, wherein it tells us about the Lord's release and that we are in fact lenders unto the nations, circling back around to Jeremiah 1:5. That's what we're supposed to lend unto the nation for their profit, is the word. Ministering on a mission, a sojourner with him, sojourning around the world, all over it, granting a redemption to the land and the people. And we do that through the knowledge. The knowledge is the benefit, and it benefits all. It creates an immunity of forgiveness. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. So once you give them notice, and they take it, and then they turn around and intentionally do it anyway, that's the tort. But when you give them knowledge and they're being belligerent and they're not accepting it, and they try to call the local police and have you arrested as a sovereign citizen, you better know how to come out of that and straighten them out. As a matter of variances, a redress control number is requested to prevent being delayed or denied passage or portage for incorrect identification and for other purposes in commission of peace as an ambassador of God to minister his gospels. Biblical teachings and deeply held religious convictions inspired concepts of civil government that are contained in the Declaration and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. Force majeure or to combat. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, having done all to stand. And all parties are deemed competent to be a fact witness to all that they see and all that they hear by reason and logic. That's all I've got for you for tonight. But I do have the rest of that document as I post that I'll bring up tomorrow night. In the meantime, be watching for some videos intermittently as I go over some more information that's relative to the correction of the record. And as I spoke to our brother there earlier, Chris, talking about that correction of the record through the SS5FS. Mine is purely going to be a directive for the automatic and mandatory declassification, because the material facts and evidence are actually in error and nobody can deny it. So they require automatic and mandatory declassification. And I'll remind everybody that under 18 U.S.C. 8, obligations and other securities of the United States, once again in plain writing, it clearly states stamps and other representatives of value. So the historical value that would be held in the National Archives may not hold as much historical value as that of my spiritual merits. The merits of my being is the spiritual credence, and I don't think you can put a value on that. So think about this stuff, folks. And remember, I love you, and I don't really care much whether you love me back or not. So you got anything left to say?
I wanted to say to everybody, if they didn't hear what you were saying about Derek's previous videos. I just wanted to put an exclamation point on that statement there, because my bro Danny and I went over that earlier today, and we were very much applauding his his expression in that, and we thought to go over that in a very diligent way, and perhaps some of your listeners would be also overjoyed to watch that.
Yes, please do so, folks. On my site, he is one of the ones that I have his links on my site, so you can go through my site to get to him, or just punch in Derek Gonzalez on YouTube and you're going to find him. And much like he said, that's separate and equal stations in life. That's that Jeremiah 1:5. You're on the same mission as they are, to be peaceful inhabitants and spread the word of the gospel. That last little bit that I read there in regards to the scriptures, that's from Public Law 97-280, the year of the Bible, 1984. Ronald Reagan established that the basis of the Constitution itself, the supreme law of the land, is found in the scriptures, thereby meaning that superior to the supreme law of the land, prior to the supreme law of the land, is the scripture. So that is the true law of the land, law of the people that come from the land, that are of the land. So think about that, and remember, that's the true expression of your equal station in life, is that you have the power to govern yourself because he says so, not them. They have the power to govern because we, the people, gave them that power. That's where they get that credit. But in us, it's that spiritual credence. And we have to have a spiritual credence to have good faith that they're going to govern appropriately. When we start losing that faith in that governance, we have to take recognition of the value of our spiritual credence and learn how to stand. So I appreciate you once again, Brother Chris. Keep doing a great job. And make sure you guys keep in touch with me, and we'll get this resolved,
Yeah, I keep sending your links on Telegram to different potentially interested parties, so hopefully we can get some more folks in on your informative presentations here.
I appreciate it. Thank you kindly, folks. And so I'm going to close out. It's been an hour and a half, a little bit longer than I usually like to make these. I want to stick to about an hour. People will pay more attention there. But again, this is one of my own documents I'm printing up to present here next week. And so we're going to do whatever we have to get it done. And in the meantime, like I said, God bless. I love you. I don't give a fuck whether you love me back. Just be you and learn who you is. Learn to know thyself. So have a good night, everybody. Thanks again for joining. God bless. All right. Bye now.
Good night.